All right, as I started studying this, I found out a few things. And we're going to find that out as I read a little bit. Of course, Genesis 22 is about Isaac and Abraham, but it's really a whole lot more. Isaac's kind of some of the story, but the covenant God made with Abraham is the story. And we start out in Genesis 12. It's when God called Abraham to go to another country. He says, now the Lord said to Abe. Now I'm going to use Abraham because I'm not going to go from Abram to, it just confuses me and confuse everybody else. But Abram is Abraham. God changed his name, and I think it was chapter 17. And there's a reason for that. So Abram means father. And Abraham means father of nations. So that's why the name change came. Now in Genesis 12, it starts out. This is where the Lord comes to Abraham and says, now the Lord said, go, Abram, and, from your country and your kindred and your father's house to a land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will have a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in all the families of the earth be blessed. So Abraham, first thing he's got to do is got to leave. He's called to leave his home. How many of us here have left their homes? Now, I wasn't called to leave. Maybe I was. Maybe I just didn't know it. But I went from Detroit, Michigan, that area, to Freed-Hardeman College in Henderson, Tennessee. If you want culture shock, that was pretty much it. So Abraham's asked to leave his country and go to a country he don't even know where he's going. He has no home there. He has no land there. He has nothing. But God's going to give it to him. So he leaves and moves on. Now, if I can get my tablet to do what it's supposed to do, we'll get moved on a little bit. We see in Genesis 15, after these things, this is things that happened to Abram, as he moved, and things that went on, the Lord comes to him again. Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, your reward will be very great. But Abram said, O Lord, what will you give me? For I continue to be childless, and the heir of my house, Eliezer, is that how you say Eliezer? Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram's, Abram said, behold, you have given me no offspring, and a member of my household will be my heir. The Lord said, no, I'm going to give you an heir. And he says, and then I'm going to make your number. This is what amazes me. They will outnumber the stars in the sky. Wow. Has anybody ever gone somewhere where it's no city lights or nothing and looked up in the sky on a nice, bright night? Man. More stars than you can count. And that's what God said he's going to do for Abram. He hasn't switched to Abraham yet. So we're in Genesis 17 now. And this is where Abram is 99 years old. And let me see here. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, that I'll make my covenant between me and you may multiply greatly. Then Abraham fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude. There we go, Abraham, father of a multitude. A father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be Abram, but your name shall be Abraham. For I have made you the father of multitudes. Now, Abraham still had the problem he had in the last set of verses I read. He has no heir. Now he's 99 years old, so we do know that when Isaac was born, Abraham was 100 years old. So it's getting time. It's getting close. I'm going to move on to, let me see. So first of all, with Abraham and Sarah, they decided we're going to circumvent having this. We're going to have a child. So Hagar was the servant of Sarah, who Abraham slept with, and they had a son named Ishmael. See, this is what I don't understand. Tried to circumvent. So I look at it like, that's almost like breaking the covenant. I did something that I wasn't told to do. But Abraham knew, and God knew. He said, listen, I'm going to protect Hagar and Ishmael, and you're going to have your son. So in 21, we find out that Sarah is pregnant with a child. And they have Isaac. Genesis 22 starts out after these things. So a whole lot took place in 25 years. Because in 25 years from the time he left his home till he gets his son. Then I'm gonna call them years preparation. It was preparing Abraham for what was going to happen in Genesis 22. And this is the hardest thing for me. So when I was dating Mary, we went to my brother-in-law's house, Paul. Of course, we weren't married yet, but we went there and we went out and cut tobacco all day long. And as a young guy, I said to myself, I'm not going to quit till he quits, no matter what. Well, we cut tobacco all day long. And when he said, all right, let's go in, I'm like, oh, yes, please. I had blisters on my hands from cutting tobacco. I was just dead. And when we got back to the house, he said, he'll do. And I kind of looked at Mary and I'm thinking to myself, so this was a test? So Abraham's been through a whole lot. Preparation. But the test hasn't came yet. Wow. You mean I've been through all this? And let me just tell you, I love my wife, but living life as a married couple has its own challenges. So the test wasn't even back that far, but it was part of what we were going to. Same thing with Abraham. All this is setting him up for this moment right here. And this is a hard one for me. I mean, this is difficult. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to Abraham, calls him Abraham, and he says, here I am. It kind of repeats that through the other chapters up to this point where he always says, here I am. We see another place in the Bible where, who is it? Where am I? Here I am, send me. So I looked up because I was really interested in to find out. And let me see if I got it here. Of course, I won't find it. But so here am I means a whole lot more than just here I am. It's basically you're turning over your body to Christ, to God. God, here I am, take me. Do what you want. So it's a whole lot deeper than just here I am. It is, I give it all to you. God says to Abraham, he said, take your son. And just listen to this part here. It's really interesting too, because it really lays out and sets up Abraham for, I mean, this is pretty hard. Take your son, your only son, whom you love. Wow. Take your son, your only son, who you love, that you've waited for 25 years. And I don't know what Abraham was thinking. I don't. But I'll probably be saying to myself, well, he's only 8 years old, so you just gave him to me, so now go to the land of Moriah. Land of Moriah. Some of the things I've read about Moriah, the mount on which he was, some say it was the same mount that Jesus was crucified on, which is very interesting. Go to the land of Moriah and offer him as a burnt sacrifice, a burnt offering on the mountain which of I shall tell you. So what does Abraham do? When he goes to bed, or he tries to, I would imagine, because it says early the next morning. What kind of night's sleep would you have if you knew you had to get up and go sacrifice your son? I would probably be packing him into the whatever I needed to car seat, and we're heading out of town. I would do it Jonah. I'm moving out, taking my son, and we're going somewhere else and hiding. But no, Abraham didn't do that. Abraham rose early the next morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 young men with him and his son Isaac. And he cut wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place which God had told him. Now the next verse says on the 3rd day. So not only did he sleep, then he had a 3-day trip to think about what was going to happen. This is a big test. A test that, has God ever tested us in a even close to a fashion like that? Has anybody here been tested? And we probably,
tested, but probably not to this extent.
Yes, if I was called to go to Freed Harbor College, it was nowhere near this. I could go back home. He left, and as far as we know, never went back. So here they go. On the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw a place from afar off. Then Abraham said to the young men, "Stay with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship, and I'll come to you again." Abraham took the wood of burnt offering and laid it on and laid Isaac on it. They go and build an altar and laid the wood down, and it said he bound Isaac. So I don't guess he was a willing participant in this, since he was bound, and laid him on the altar. And Isaac knows what's going on. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. Now it's interesting because they carried fire with them. When I go camping, I don't carry fire with me. I guess I do. It's a wooden match that you'd strike and light. I guess that's a big lighter. Yeah, we don't carry the fire itself with us. It's probably coals or something like that they keep hot, and they can start it real easily. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid Isaac on it. He took in his hand the fire and the knife, so they both went together. As we're going up this mountain, Isaac's talking to his dad. He says, "Father." And Isaac said, "Here I am, son." Here we are with the "here I am." I don't know if I've ever said "here I am" to either of my boys, or even my daughter. Here I am. I told you before what "here I am" really means. If it meant for God, I'm all about you, son. He said, "My father."
Verse 6, to me, it said Abraham took the wood and placed it on his son Isaac. And I'm sure that people must parallel of Christ carrying his own cross, like Isaac was carrying the cross of his son.
Yes. So he took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife, and they went together. Isaac asked, where I see the wood, I see the fire. Where's the lamb? How do you answer your son then? So all this that's going on in this first of this chapter is heart-wrenching. Did he tell Sarah, the mom, what he was going for? Anybody think he might not have said a word to Sarah? Yeah, because he's still walking. That would be a pretty good clue. He walked for 3 days, so I don't think he told Sarah.
Well, here's a little white lie. He could have said, we're going to be back a couple of days. We're going, God's sending us to make a sacrifice.
And you're absolutely right.
Just one culture.
Right.
And this is, see, again, this is absolutely this, the faith of Abraham up until this point is unbelievable. Let me see, he laid him on top of the wood. He reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. I watched a video, or a preacher did a sermon on this, and he said that the sun was probably up, and he said, can you just imagine the knife raised up? And he's got it raised up, ready to go. Now, see, Abraham thought, if I sacrifice my son, God could bring him back. So the whole time he's saying, you know what? I'll sacrifice. God's going to give it back to me. He gave it to me once. It's like having him twice.
When he believed that he was going to be the father of many nations, it had to be through Isaac. So he would have had to have done that. Many nations.
And again, like I said, the more I read about this story, I think Isaac is just kind of a sideline to the real story. But this happens. The angel of the Lord calls out to him from heaven and says, Abraham, Abraham. So twice. Now I think the first time I would have, oh, thank goodness. You know, but Abraham was like, and calls to him again. And he said, here I am. Again, he says, here I am. Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me.
I've heard that actually, in Abraham's mind, he carried it out. God stopped it, so he couldn't carry it out. I don't know where I heard that, but to me, well, that makes sense because he was ready and determined. He was absolutely.
Well, what do you think happened? That's the hard one for me is how he could be that close, and then there's nothing ever said about him holding it against Abraham.
So when the angel of the Lord calls out to Abraham, I believe that Isaac could hear it. I don't believe it was just Abraham hearing this. I believe Isaac, because they were the only two on the mountain. The two other men that were with them stayed with the donkey. So Isaac and Abraham would have both heard what the angels were saying. Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked into the thicket, and there was a ram caught by its horns. What do you think? What a relief. You're an eyelash away from sacrificing your son, and the angel of the Lord stops you, and there's a ram caught up by its horns in the thicket. Wow.
I can point back to earlier too, when Isaac asked, here's the fire and here's the wood, where's the lamb? And Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for burnt offering. So even then, Abraham had faith that it was going to work out. Even if he had to carry it out, it was going to work out.
So Abraham called the name of this place. First he offered up the ram as a burnt offering instead of his son. Then he called the name of the place, the Lord will provide. And it says, as it is said to this day, on the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. So, just think about that for a minute. It's hard for me brings me to tears every time I read about the crucifixion. I hear somebody, because I couldn't do a sermon on it. But God gave his son, just like Abraham was ready to do to his son. So the angel of the Lord comes again. It says the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven. By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this, you have not withheld your son, your only son. I will bless you and will surely multiply your offspring as the stars in heaven and the sand on the seashore. And your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. In your offspring shall the nations of the earth be blessed, because of you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to the young men. They arose together. Bashir and Abraham lived at Bashir. So they leave this place after all this. And as I said, so I'm going through this lesson, and I get to all this, and I'm going, hold it a minute. There's a whole lot more stacked into this story that if you don't unstack it, because Isaac is really the sacrifice. I'm just going to say sacrifice. But he was second thought to everything else that was going on. So how many covenants do we know of? I know a couple. So you have Noah, the rainbow in the sky. Will Noah ever see the earth be destroyed again?
Not by water.
Not by water, but he won't see it. Well, in heaven he'll see it. So a covenant doesn't happen. You know, if we have I'm just going to say a car payment, 5 years and it's done and it's gone, you'll never have to pay any more on it. Just don't end in 5 years. This thing goes on and on. This covenant God made with Abraham. Matter of fact, through the nations, basically the covenant of grace was able to take place because Jesus Christ comes through this lineage. Without this, I don't know. So as we look at this thing, everything that went on in this is about today. Where we're at today. Who do we give? Or what do we give? Or what do we sacrifice to worship God? We're a blessed nation. We don't have to sacrifice much. I can get in my car, come down to the church building, we can come in and worship. Now, if you're in, let's say, China, you're not so blessed. Because you have to, a lot of times in hiding. It's getting better than it used to be, but still. And think of the war going on in Israel. And I'm like, they've been fighting forever. They don't know how not to fight. But think of people, Christians over there, and what they have to go through to worship. I just think we've never been tested. We have never been tested like that. We are such a blessed nation, and there's times I'm going, man, oh man. I've heard people say, what's it going to take for God to say, I'm done? I'm done with y'all. I don't know what it's going to take. If I read what happened in Noah's time, they basically built the ark, and the whole time we're preaching, and nobody believed them. And did that first drop of rain hit, I don't know what it's going to take for God to say, I am done. But I pray every day that we're there where we need to be. This story, it's an amazing story to me because God sent his son. "33 years old, so his son was on this earth 33 years somewhere. Watch him grow up, watch him become a man, watch him start his ministry, watch him hang on a cross. Where God stopped Abraham, he didn't stop Jesus from being crucified. Because there had to be blood for people to be saved. There was blood in Abraham and Isaac, but it was a ram. It wasn't a son. And again, in this story, as I read it and I look over it, I see so much more than Abraham and Isaac. I see God and his son.